Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UNES Compassion and watched the stars streak past. Her ship was the largest in the convoy, carrying enough medical supplies to save hundreds of thousands of lives. Behind her, 11 other Earth ships followed in perfect formation. They were all heading to Theta Verdice, a world that desperately needed help. 3 days ago, a massive solar flare had hit the planet. The burst of radiation had destroyed every power generator, every computer, every communication device on the surface. 340,000 Verdicians were trapped down there without electricity, without medicine, without any way to call for help. Their thick blue skin could handle their planet's normal radiation, but without their protective shields, they were dying. One of their ships had managed to escape before the flare hit. That ship had carried the news to the Galactic Council. The Council had held an emergency meeting. One by one, the alien representatives had expressed their sadness. They had offered their thoughts and prayers. Some had even sent messages of support to the Verdician people, but nobody had sent actual help. Nobody except Earth. Elena remembered watching the Council broadcast with her crew. She had seen the Verdician ambassador, Korath, his blue face wet with tears as he begged for assistance. She had seen the other aliens look away, making excuses. Their ships were too far away. Their supplies were committed elsewhere. Perhaps in a few weeks they could send something. The Verdicians did not have a few weeks. Earth's response had come within 2 hours. Admiral Sarah Mitchell herself had appeared on every major news channel across human space. Her message was simple and direct: we're going. Launch everything we have. That had been 48 hours ago. In that time, humanity had assembled the largest relief convoy in galactic history. 12 ships loaded with power generators, medical equipment, food synthesizers, water purifiers, and 2,000 of Earth's best doctors, nurses, and engineers. Dr. James Chen walked onto the bridge carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Elena and stood beside her, looking out at the stars. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much to think about," James replied. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been a surgeon for 30 years, had saved thousands of lives, but he had never been part of something this big. "Do you think we'll make it in time?" "We have to," Elena said simply. James nodded. They both knew the statistics. Every hour they delayed, another 100 Verdicians would die from radiation sickness, from infected wounds, from simple dehydration. The planet's infrastructure had completely collapsed. "The other species think we're crazy," James said. "Did you see the Hexian ambassador's speech? He said we're wasting resources on people who failed to prepare adequately." Elena's jaw tightened. The Hexians were an insect-like species known for their cold logic. They saw charity as weakness. They believed every species should be strong enough to handle their own problems. "He can think whatever he wants," Elena said. "We're not doing this for praise. We're doing it because it's right." That was the human way. 43 years ago, Earth had made first contact with the Galactic Council. The aliens had been surprised by humanity. They had expected humans to be aggressive, violent, dangerous. Earth's history was full of wars, after all. Every species in the galaxy knew about humanity's bloody past, but the humans who joined the Council had chosen a different path. They had become traitors, diplomats, teachers, and healers. They had helped rebuild worlds after natural disasters. They had mediated disputes between warring species. They had opened their universities to alien students and their hospitals to alien patients. The galaxy had relaxed. Humans were peaceful, they decided. Humans were soft. Humans could be ignored when convenient. Elena knew better. She had served in the Earth Defense Force before joining the civilian fleet. She knew what humanity kept hidden in the shadows. She knew about the shipyards disguised as mining stations, about the weapons platforms hidden in asteroid fields, about the secret protocols that every human captain carried in a sealed file, but she hoped those protocols would never need to be used. An alarm beeped softly. Lieutenant Park looked up from her console. "Captain, we're approaching the Theta Verdice system." "We'll be in orbit in 20 minutes. "Good," Elena said. "Signal the convoy." Everyone enters orbit together. Medical teams prepare for immediate deployment. The bridge became busy with activity. Officers checked and rechecked their systems. In the cargo holds, doctors prepared their equipment. Engineers tested the portable generators one last time. Everyone knew their job. Everyone was ready. Elena opened a channel to the entire convoy. "All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. In a few minutes, we're going to enter orbit around a dying world. We're going to see things that will break our hearts. We're going to work until we can't stand up. And we're going to save every life we possibly can. That's what humans do. That's who we are. I'm proud to serve with all of you." Responses came back from 11 ships. Words of determination. Words of courage. The convoy moved forward as one. Ambassador Korath's face appeared on the main screen. The Verdician looked exhausted but hopeful. "Captain Vasquez, we've been tracking your approach. I don't know how to thank you." "You can thank us by helping us coordinate the relief effort," Elena said warmly. "We'll need your knowledge of your planet's geography and population centers." "Where should we start?" Korath pulled up a map. Red dots covered the surface, each one marking a settlement in trouble. "The capital city has 3 million people. Their situation is the worst. But there are hundreds of smaller towns. We'll get to all of them," Elena promised. "We brought enough supplies for everyone." She meant it. The convoy's cargo holds were packed with enough equipment to power and feed every Verdician on the planet for months. Humanity had stripped supplies from a dozen colonies to make this mission possible. Some humans had gone without so that aliens they had never met could survive. The Compassion shuddered slightly as it entered orbit. Through the main window, Elena could see Theta Verdice below. It was a beautiful world, with blue oceans and green continents. But she could also see the dark cities, the smoke rising from fires, the complete absence of lights. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said, her voice suddenly tight, "I'm picking up something odd. There are ships here, 12 of them. Military configuration. They're decloaking." Elena's blood went cold. "Identification?" "Krathik's Dominion," Park said. "They're powering weapons." Before Elena could respond, her communication console lit up. A harsh reptilian face appeared on screen. The Krathiks had scales like dark metal and eyes like yellow fire. "Human vessels," the alien said, its voice full of contempt. "I am Commander Vexthor of the Krathik's Dominion. Your supplies are now our property. Power down your shields and prepare to be boarded." Elena's hand moved to the emergency beacon hidden under her command console. "This is a humanitarian convoy under Galactic Council protection. We are unarmed. We are here to provide medical assistance to the Verdician people." Vexthor's laugh was like breaking glass. "Your weakness is your extinction, human." The communication cut off. A second later, the universe turned to fire. The first missile hit the UNES Hope, one of the smaller medical ships in the convoy. The ship simply vanished in a ball of white fire. 300 doctors and nurses died in an instant. They never had time to scream. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped her command chair as the Compassion's shields flared bright blue under weapons fire. The Krathik's warships surrounded the convoy like predators circling wounded prey. Red energy beams cut through the darkness of space, tearing into the unarmed human vessels. "Return fire," Lieutenant Park shouted. "We can't," Elena shouted back. "We have no weapons." "Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of their firing solution." But the Compassion was a cargo hauler, not a warship. It was big and slow and filled with medical supplies instead of armor plating. The Krathiks knew this. They had chosen their target carefully. Another human ship exploded. Then another. The communication channels filled with screams and emergency signals. Elena watched in horror as the Unis Mercy took a direct hit to its engine core. The ship broke in half. Escape pods launched, tiny white specks against the black. The Krathiks shot them down one by one. They were killing everyone. "Even the survivors, Captain." Dr. Chen stumbled onto the bridge, his face bleeding from where he had hit a wall during an impact. "What's happening?" "We're under attack," Elena said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Get back to the medical bay. Seal the pressure doors. Take everyone you can fit, but now, James." "That's an order." The doctor ran. Elena hoped he would make it. She hoped someone would survive to tell what happened here. The Compassion shook violently. Sparks exploded from control panels across the bridge. Lieutenant Park's console went dark. Half the lights went out. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 7, an officer shouted. "Life support failing." Elena's fingers flew across her command console, accessing the emergency protocols. Every human captain carried a sealed file, orders that were only to be opened in the worst possible situation. She had never thought she would need to open hers. She opened it now. Inside was a single button labeled, "Emergency Beacon, War Protocols." Elena slammed her hand down on it. A signal burst out from the Compassion, faster than light. encoded with humanity's most advanced encryption. It would reach Earth in minutes. It would tell them everything. It would show them the live footage from the Compassion's external cameras. It would show Earth what was happening to its children. Commander Vex Thor's face appeared on Elena's screen again. The Krathix's yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Your ship is dead, human. You should have surrendered when you had the chance." "We came here to help," Elena said, tasting blood in her mouth. Something was broken inside her chest. "We came to save lives. We are doctors. We are healers. We have no weapons. That is why you die," Vex Thor said. "The weak have no place in this galaxy. Consider this a lesson for your pathetic species." The communication cut off again. Fire bloomed along the Compassion's hull. Elena felt the ship dying around her. The bridge crew worked frantically, but it was no use. Main power was gone. The engines were offline. The shields had failed. She opened the internal communication channel. "This is the captain. All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. Get to—" An explosion cut her off. The blast threw her across the bridge. She hit a wall and felt her arm snap. Pain washed over her in waves. Through blurry vision, she could see the emergency display. Of the 12 ships in the convoy, only 4 were still intact. The others were debris fields now, scattered across the orbit of Theta Verdice. 14,000 humans had been alive 5 minutes ago. Now most of them were dead. Elena crawled to her console. She had to make sure the beacon was still transmitting. Earth needed to see this. Earth needed to know. The display showed the beacon was active. Good. The footage was being broadcast on all frequencies, including the Galactic Council's emergency channels. The whole galaxy would see what the Krathix had done. She hoped it mattered. Deep in the ship, Dr. Chen had reached the medical bay. He had managed to seal the pressure doors just before the hull breach reached their section. 200 people were crammed into a space meant for 50. Medical personnel, engineers, supply officers, even a few Verdician refugees they had picked up from an escape shuttle. "Is everyone inside?" James shouted. "Doors sealed," someone answered. The medical bay still had power, still had air, but they all knew it was temporary. The rest of the ship was dying. Soon their section would too. James looked at the frightened faces around him. These were good people. They had volunteered to cross the galaxy to help strangers. They had given up their time, their comfort, their safety, and now they would die because someone evil had decided to attack them. It wasn't fair. A young nurse named Maria was crying quietly in the corner. She was 23 years old. This was her first mission. James sat down beside her and took her hand. "I'm scared," Maria whispered. "Me too," James admitted. Around them, other people began to hold hands. Someone started singing softly. It was an old Earth song, a simple melody about hope and home. Others joined in. Even the Verdician refugees hummed along, not knowing the words but understanding the meaning. In the cold darkness, surrounded by enemies, the humans sang "On Earth." In the massive Security Council chamber in Geneva, 50 people watched the live broadcast in complete silence. They saw the attacks. They saw the ships exploding. They saw the escape pods being destroyed. They heard Commander Vex Thor's words about weakness and extinction. They saw everything. Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood at the head of the table. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Around her, the representatives of Earth's nations sat frozen in their seats. The broadcast continued. They watched the medical bay, where 200 people sang as their air ran out. They heard the children's voices. They saw Dr. Chen holding Maria's hand as the lights began to flicker and fade. The singing stopped. The transmission ended. For 90 seconds, nobody in the Security Council chamber moved. Nobody spoke. They simply sat in the terrible silence, processing what they had witnessed. Then Admiral Mitchell stood. She walked to the center of the room and placed her hand on a red panel that had been installed on the first day humanity had joined the Galactic Council, a panel that had never been touched in 43 years. She looked at each representative in turn. "I'm invoking Article 7 of the Earth Defense Charter. We have witnessed an unprovoked attack on a humanitarian convoy. 14,000 civilians are dead or dying. I am requesting authorization to activate the war protocols." The Chinese representative stood. "Granted." The American representative stood. "Granted." One by one, every representative rose and spoke the same word. In less than a minute, it was done. Admiral Mitchell pressed the panel. Across Earth, across every human colony, across every human station in space, alarms began to sound. Not emergency alarms, war alarms. Mitchell's voice was broadcast to every human in the galaxy. This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell, Earth Defense Force Commander. 43 years ago, we chose peace. We chose to be friends to the galaxy. Today, someone attacked our doctors, our nurses, our engineers. People who came to help. People who carried nothing but medicine and hope. They killed our children, and they laughed while doing it. We will not debate this. We will not form committees. We will not issue statements. We will act. Activate the war protocols. Prepare for immediate deployment. The Krathix Dominion has declared war on humanity. We will finish it. The transmission ended. In secret shipyards hidden throughout the Sol system, massive doors began to open. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 200 species shouted at each other, their translation devices barely able to keep up. On the massive display screens, footage of the Theta Verdice massacre played on repeat. Ambassador Korath, the Verdician, stood in the center of the chamber with tears streaming down his blue face. "They came to help us," he said, his voice breaking. "The humans came to save my people, and the Krathix murdered them. 14,000 souls extinguished in minutes." The Hexian ambassador clicked his mandibles dismissively. "A tragic accident, certainly, but accident?" Korath's voice turned to a roar. "They shot down the escape pods. They targeted the medical vessels." "There was no accident." The council president, a tall, gray-skinned Peltharian named Suvak, raised his 6 arms for silence. "We must approach this rationally. We should form an investigation committee, perhaps economic sanctions against the Krathix." The human observer's booth had been empty since the attack. Earth had recalled its ambassadors. But now the door opened. Admiral Sarah Mitchell walked in wearing her full military uniform. Behind her marched 20 human officers, all in combat gear. They moved with perfect precision, their boots striking the floor in unison. Every conversation stopped. Mitchell walked to the center of the chamber and looked up at President Suvak. "The investigation is over. We know who attacked us, we know why, and we know what we're going to do about it." "Admiral," Suvak said carefully, "I understand your anger, but we must follow proper procedures." "Procedures?" Mitchell's laugh was cold. "We followed your procedures. For 43 years we followed every rule, every protocol, every piece of bureaucratic nonsense you created. We asked for permission to defend our ships. You said no. We asked for military escorts for our medical convoys. You said it would be too aggressive. We followed your rules and our children died because of it." She pulled out a data pad and threw it onto the council floor. It projected a hologram into the air, showing Commander Vexthor's message. His voice filled the chamber. "Your weakness is your extinction, human." "That," Mitchell said quietly, "was their mistake. They thought kindness meant weakness. They thought because we chose peace we had forgotten how to make war. They were wrong." She pressed a button on her wrist communicator. The chamber's external windows suddenly filled with ships, hundreds of them. They appeared from nowhere, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation around the council station. The alien representatives rushed to the windows, staring in shock. 500 warships, Mitchell said calmly. "That's 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Fleet. Another 1,000 are being activated as we speak. We built them in secret over the past 40 years. You thought they were mining stations and cargo facilities. You were meant to." The Hexian ambassador's voice was shrill with shock. "This violates the Military Limitation Treaty. You agreed to maintain only a small defensive force." "We maintained a defensive force," Mitchell agreed. "But we never stopped being prepared. Every human learns our history.
We know what happens to the unprepared.
We know what happens to the weak. So we built these ships and we hid them, and we prayed we'd never need to use them." She turned back to President Suvak. "We are informing the Council, not asking permission. Earth is formally requesting the surrender of Commander Vexthor and all Krathix officers involved in the Theta Verdice attack. They will be tried for murder, for war crimes, and for crimes against sapient beings." "And if the Krathix refuse?" Suvak asked. "Then we go to war." "You cannot be serious," the Hexian ambassador said. "The Krathix Dominion has over 500 worlds. They have the 3rd largest military in the galaxy. You are one species. We are one species that conquered our own planet before we could even leave it." Mitchell interrupted. We fought wars with rocks and sticks, with swords and spears, with guns and bombs and nuclear fire. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. We know war better than any species in this chamber. We studied it. We perfected it. And then we locked it away, hoping we'd never need it again. She pulled up another hologram, this one showing technical specifications. The alien representatives leaned forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. Kinetic bombardment systems, Mitchell explained. Magnetic accelerators that can throw a slug of metal at a significant fraction of light speed. No explosives needed, just mass and velocity. One projectile can level a city. We have thousands of them. She switched to another display. Plasma lance batteries. They cut through shields like paper. Kasaba howitzer nuclear-pumped lasers. Electronic warfare systems that can blind your sensors from a light year away. And these are just the weapons we're willing to tell you about. The chamber was completely silent. You want to know the funny thing? Mitchell said. We didn't design any of this using your technology. We built it all from our own research, our own science. You gave us faster-than-light travel and artificial gravity. Thank you for that. But the weapons? Those are pure human engineering, based on principles we developed centuries ago, when we were still killing each other over patches of dirt. President Suvak's voice was quiet. What are your terms? Simple. The Krathix government has 24 hours to surrender every individual involved in the Theta Verdice attack. If they comply, we will accept their surrender and try the criminals under galactic law. If they refuse, Mitchell let the sentence hang. If they refuse, you will attack? If they refuse, we will end them, Mitchell corrected. Not their people, not their civilians, but their government, their military, their ability to ever threaten another peaceful mission. We will dismantle their empire piece by piece until they beg to give us what we want. She turned to leave, her officers following. At the door, she paused and looked back. For 43 years, you knew humanity's history. You knew we came from a world of war. You knew we were dangerous, but you thought we had gone soft. You thought we had forgotten who we were. That was your mistake. We didn't forget. We just chose to be better. But when you murder our innocence, when you laugh at our kindness, you remind us of what we can be when we stop being civilized. She left. The doors closed behind her. In the Krathix capital, news of Earth's ultimatum reached Emperor Drask within the hour. The ruler of the Krathix dominion was ancient, his scales marked with the scars of 100 battles. He had led his people to conquer 40 worlds. He had defeated species that the Galactic Council had considered unbeatable. He watched the footage of the human fleet and laughed. 500 ships, he hissed to his advisors. The humans think 500 ships can threaten us? We have 20,000 warships. We have defended our territory for 800 years. Let them come. He dictated his response personally. To the humans of Earth, we reject your demands. Commander Vex Thor acted within his authority to claim resources for the Dominion. If you want him, come and take him. We will be waiting. The message was broadcast across the galaxy. The Galactic Council held an emergency session, debating what to do. Some species called for intervention. Others argued for neutrality. The Hexians proposed economic sanctions on both sides. While they argued, Earth acted. Admiral Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UNES Retribution, the flagship of First Fleet. Around her, 200 warships moved in perfect formation. They had launched from Earth orbit 10 minutes after the Theta Verdice attack. They had been in faster-than-light travel for 3 days while the politicians talked. They were done talking. Navigation, Mitchell said calmly. Set course for Krathix Prime. Maximum speed. All ships are weapons-free upon arrival. Yes, sir, the navigation officer responded. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light, disappearing from the edge of Council space. They would reach the Krathix homeworld in 4 days. On Earth, parents held their children close and prayed. Soldiers boarded ships and prepared for war. Engineers worked around the clock, building more weapons, more ammunition, more tools for the terrible work ahead. And in every human heart, a single question burned. How dare they attack our healers? The galaxy was about to learn the answer. The first Krathix ships detected the human fleet at the edge of their home system. 20 massive warships moved to intercept, their commanders confident. These were veteran crews. They had fought in 100 battles. They lasted 17 minutes. The human ships didn't slow down. They didn't try to talk. They simply opened fire from maximum range with weapons the Krathix had never seen before. Magnetic accelerators launched metal slugs at speeds that made them invisible. By the time the Krathix sensors detected the projectiles, they had already hit. 3 Krathix battleships exploded. The others tried to scatter, but the humans were faster. Plasma lances cut through their shields like hot knives through butter. Electronic warfare systems blinded their targeting computers. In minutes, all 20 ships were destroyed or disabled. Not a single human ship took damage. Admiral Mitchell watched from the Retribution's bridge as her fleet swept through the outer system. "Target all orbital infrastructure," she ordered. Weapons platforms, shipyards, defense stations, communication satellites. Everything in orbit gets destroyed. Nothing on the ground gets touched. The fleet split into hunting groups. They moved through Krathix space like a storm, precise and unstoppable. Every military installation in orbit vanished in fire and metal. The Krathix tried to fight back, but their weapons couldn't hit the fast-moving human ships. Their missiles were shot down. Their energy beams missed by kilometers. Within 6 hours, Krathix Prime was cut off from space. No ships could launch. No supplies could arrive. The planet was locked down. "Open a broadcast to the surface," Mitchell said. "All channels." Her face appeared on every screen on the planet. 40 billion Krathix watched as she spoke. "People of Krathix Prime, this is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of Earth. We did not want this war. Your leaders chose it when they murdered our medical personnel. We are not here to kill you. We are here to bring justice. Surrender Commander Vexthor and his officers, and this ends today. Refuse, and we will dismantle your empire piece by piece until you have nothing left but regret." Emperor Drask's response was defiant. He appeared on the same channels, his old scales bristling with anger. "The Krathix do not surrender. We do not bow to threats. Our military will crush these humans and scatter their bones." Mitchell sighed. She had hoped they would be smart. They weren't. "Second Fleet," she said into her communicator. "You are cleared to proceed to target systems. Begin Operation Stranglehold." Across Krathix space, 300 human ships appeared at 12 different worlds. They ignored the planets themselves. Instead, they targeted infrastructure. Transportation hubs, spaceports, orbital elevators, communication networks. The Krathix had built their empire on complex supply chains. Food from agricultural worlds fed industrial worlds. Resources from mining colonies supplied manufacturing centers. It was efficient when everything worked. The humans broke it. On Krathi 7, kinetic strikes destroyed every major spaceport. The planet's 40 million Krathix were unharmed, but they couldn't receive food shipments from off-world anymore. On Krathix 12, plasma lances cut through the orbital elevator cables. The massive structures fell like broken threads, taking the planet's primary means of reaching space with them. Week 1 ended with the Krathix military in chaos. They had lost 300 ships and couldn't replace them. Their shipyards were debris. Their planets were isolated from each other, and the humans hadn't lost a single vessel. Emperor Drask called his generals together. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We have the numbers. We have the firepower." The oldest general, a female named Kresh, spoke carefully. "They're not fighting like soldiers, my emperor. They're fighting like hunters. They strike from nowhere, hit our weak points, and vanish before we can respond. And their ships? They're faster than anything we've ever seen." "Then we need to be smarter," Drask said. "Begin Operation Civilian Shield. Fill our transport ships with civilians and use them to deliver our troops. The humans won't fire on civilian vessels." Kresh looked uncomfortable. "My emperor, that violates the rules of war." "The humans broke those rules when they attacked us," Drask growled. He was wrong about that. The humans hadn't attacked first. But at this point he couldn't admit it. He had told his people they would win. He had promised them victory. Now he needed to deliver, no matter the cost. Week 2 began with Krathix transport ships filled with civilians trying to break through the human blockades. The ships broadcast constantly, showing the innocent people aboard. Families with children, elderly individuals, all of them scared. Admiral Mitchell watched the approaching transports and felt sick. "Scan them. Confirming weapon signatures aboard all vessels," her tactical officer reported. "They're using the civilians as shields for troop transports." Mitchell's face went hard. "Broadcast this on all frequencies. Every channel. I want the whole galaxy to see what the Krathix government is doing to its own people." The footage went out across space. The galaxy watched as the Krathix military hid behind their own civilians. Outrage erupted across the Galactic Council. And the humans didn't blink, they didn't fire on the civilian ships. Instead, they used their electronic warfare systems to hack the ship's controls. One by one, the transports lost power and went adrift. Human boarding parties, moving in powered armor, secured each ship. They separated the civilians from the soldiers. The civilians were given food and water and placed in safety. The soldiers were taken prisoner. The operation took 12 hours. Not a single civilian died. Commander Vexthor, safe in his fortress on a military moon, watched the footage and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. These humans were not like any enemy he had fought. They were precise. They were patient. And they were completely merciless toward military targets while showing incredible care for civilians. He started to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. By week 3, the Krathix people were hungry. Food shipments had stopped. Power was intermittent. Water supplies were running low. None of this was because the humans had destroyed civilian infrastructure. It was because the Krathix government had built everything to depend on space-based logistics, and the humans controlled space. Protests began on Krathix Prime. Citizens demanded answers. Why were they suffering? Why was the war continuing? Why wouldn't the government just hand over the criminals who had started this? Emperor Drask tried to maintain control. He sent his police to break up the protests. He shut down communication networks to stop people from organizing. It didn't work. The humans helped with that too. They began broadcasting directly to personal devices on every Krathix world, showing footage of what really happened at Theta Verdice. They showed the medical ships being destroyed. They showed the escape pods being targeted. They showed Commander Vexthor laughing about weakness and extinction. The Krathix people realized their government had started a war by murdering healers, and now they were suffering for that decision. The protests turned into riots. The riots turned into revolution. On the military moon where Vexthor had hidden, his own officers came for him. They were tired. They were ashamed. And they knew this war was lost. You brought this on us, General Kresh said as her soldiers placed Vexthor in restraints. You murdered peaceful people and brought hell down on our heads. Now you'll face justice for it. She contacted Admiral Mitchell directly. We are surrendering Commander Vexthor and all officers involved in the Theta Verdice massacre. We are also offering the unconditional surrender of our military. Please, no more. Our people are starving. Mitchell's response was immediate. Surrender accepted. All human ships, ceasefire. Begin relief operations. Get food and medical supplies to the Krathix planets. Prioritize children and the elderly. The war was over. 21 days after it began. The final count. 300 Krathix warships destroyed. 0 human ships lost. Krathix military infrastructure eliminated. Civilian casualties from human actions, 0. Civilian deaths from Krathix government actions during the war, 37,000, mostly from the civilian shield operation. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Humans had gone to war. They had fought with overwhelming force. They had shown no mercy to military targets. But they had protected every civilian they could, even enemy civilians. They had won completely, decisively, in 3 weeks. And then, the moment they won, they started helping. Within hours of the surrender, human cargo ships arrived at every Krathix world. They carried food, medicine, and power generators. The same supplies that had been meant for Theta Verdice now multiplied 100 times over. Ambassador Korath, watching from the Galactic Council chamber, felt tears roll down his blue face again. But this time they were different tears. They destroyed an empire, he whispered, and then they fed its people. What kind of species does that? The Hexian ambassador for once had no response. The trial was held on Earth in The Hague, the same city where humans had once tried their own war criminals. The Galactic Council had offered to host it, but Admiral Mitchell had refused. They attacked our people, she had said. They'll be judged by our laws. The courtroom was broadcast across every inhabited world in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as Commander Vexthor and 23 of his officers were brought in wearing restraints. The Krathix looked smaller now, their scales dull, their yellow eyes downcast. The lead prosecutor was a human woman named Sarah Chen. She was Dr. James Chen's daughter. Her father had survived the Theta Verdice massacre barely. He sat in the courtroom's front row, watching. Sarah Chen stood and began to present the evidence. She showed footage of the attack. She displayed the communication logs proving the attack was unprovoked. She brought forward survivors who testified about watching their friends die. She read the names of the dead, all 14,000 of them. It took 6 hours. The courtroom was silent except for her voice and the sound of people crying. Vexthor's defense attorney, a human surprisingly, argued that his client had been following orders, that he had believed the convoy was a military target in disguise, that cultural differences had led to a misunderstanding. The prosecution destroyed every argument. They showed how the ships were clearly marked as medical vessels, how they had broadcast their humanitarian purpose, how they had no weapons, how Vexthor had continued firing even after it was obvious these were civilians. The jury, composed of 6 humans and 6 aliens from neutral species, deliberated for 4 hours. The verdict: guilty on all counts, murder, war crimes, crimes against sapient beings. The judge, an elderly human man who had served in Earth's Defense Force decades ago, delivered the sentence. Commander Vexthor, you and your officers are sentenced to life imprisonment at hard labor. You will spend the rest of your lives rebuilding what you destroyed. You will help reconstruct Theta Verdice. You will restore the lives you tried to end, and every day you will remember the innocent people you killed. Vexthor finally spoke. His voice was quiet, broken. I was wrong. I thought they were weak. I thought kindness was foolishness. I didn't understand that strength and compassion could exist together. I understand now. Too late, but I understand. He was led away. The trial was over. The next day, Admiral Mitchell stood before the Galactic Council to present Earth's terms for peace. The chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives. They needed to know what humanity wanted. Mitchell stood in the center of the chamber looking up at the hundreds of aliens watching her. She took a breath and began. 3 months ago, the Krathix Dominion attacked a humanitarian convoy. They killed 14,000 humans who had come to help strangers. They laughed at our kindness and called it weakness. Today the Krathix Dominion no longer exists. It has been reorganized as the Krathix Republic, with a civilian government and a military limited to defensive purposes only. She pulled up a holographic display showing the new Krathix government structure. The Republic has agreed to pay reparations to Theta Verdice and to the families of every human who died. They have agreed to allow human peacekeeping forces to remain in their space for the next 20 years. They have agreed to demilitarize and to never again threaten peaceful missions. President Suvak spoke. These terms seem reasonable. Is this all Earth requires? Not quite, Mitchell said. She pulled up another document. We're also requesting changes to the Galactic Council Charter. First, any attack on a medical convoy from any species will be considered an act of war against the entire Council. Second, humanitarian missions will be authorized to carry military escorts. Third, Earth receives a permanent seat on the Security Council with veto power. Murmurs filled the chamber. The Hexian ambassador stood. You're demanding a seat at the table? After you waged war without council approval? Mitchell turned to face him. We waged war after our healers were murdered. After the council offered nothing but thoughts and prayers. After 43 years of following rules that protected no one. Yes, we want a seat at the table, because clearly, someone needs to remind this council what it's supposed to stand for. And what is that? The Hexian asked coldly. Protection. Justice. The idea that we're better together than apart. That we help each other when disaster strikes. That we don't let murderers hide behind committees and procedures. Mitchell's voice rose. You call us aggressive? We call ourselves protective. For 43 years we played by your rules. We traded, we talked, we helped. We sent our healers to every corner of this galaxy, and when they were murdered you wanted to form an investigation committee. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. You don't understand humanity. We're not aggressive by nature. We're reactive. Push us, we push back. Threaten us, we defend ourselves. But murder our innocent? Kill those who came only to help? That's the line you can never cross, and we didn't want this war. We prepared for it because our history taught us to never be helpless again. But we never wanted it. The Krathix chose violence. We ended it. She pulled up one more display. It showed human ships distributing supplies across Krathix space. Right now our vessels are feeding the same people whose military attacked us. Because that's who we are. We'll destroy your warships without hesitation. but we'll feed your children without question. We'll dismantle your empire, but we'll protect your civilians. That's humanity. The chamber was completely silent. So let me be very clear about the new understanding, Mitchell continued. Humanity will remain your partners, your traitors, your friends. We will still come when you call for aid. Our doctors will still volunteer for missions. Our engineers will still help rebuild after disasters, but we will no longer be your victims. Attack our civilians, our healers, our innocents, and we will respond with the full measure of our capability, not with anger, not with hatred, but with absolute certainty and overwhelming force. We are not your enemies, but we are no longer your prey. She finished and stood silent, waiting. President Suvak consulted with the other council leaders. After 10 minutes, he spoke. The council accepts Earth's terms. Humanity is granted a permanent Security Council seat. The charter amendments will be implemented immediately. But not everyone was happy. Several species that had remained silent during the attack now found their trade agreements under review. The Hexians discovered that human merchants were no longer interested in doing business with them. Other species rushed to offer new treaties, new partnerships, anything to stay in humanity's good graces. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. 1 year later, a new station orbited Theta Verdice. It was called the Captain Elena Vasquez Memorial Station, named after the woman who had died trying to help strangers. The station served as both a medical facility and a school, teaching the galaxy's best doctors and nurses. At the dedication ceremony, Ambassador Korath stood with Dr. James Chen. The doctor had stayed on Theta Verdice after the war, helping rebuild. His daughter Sarah had joined him, bringing her own medical expertise. I still have nightmares, James admitted to Korath, about the medical bay, about watching the air run out, about thinking I'd never see my daughter again. Korath placed a gentle hand on the human's shoulder. You gave us our lives, Dr. Chen, all of us. You came when no one else would. Below them, on the planet's surface, Verdician children played in rebuilt cities. Many of them had been born after the disaster, after the war. They would grow up in a world saved by human kindness and protected by human strength. A new distress call came through to Earth Command. A mining colony on the edge of Council space had suffered a catastrophic system failure. 3,000 beings needed immediate evacuation and medical care. Admiral Mitchell, now officially the Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, reviewed the situation. Launch the relief fleet. 2 medical ships, full supply loadout. Military escort? Her aide asked. 4 destroyers, Mitchell said without hesitation. And make sure every ship in that convoy is armed. We help everyone who needs it. But we'll never again send our people out defenseless. The fleet launched within the hour. As it jumped to faster than light speed, a message was broadcast ahead. Help is coming. Earth responds. Those 3 words had become famous across the galaxy. Earth responds. It meant that if you were in trouble, if disaster struck, if you needed help, humanity would come. They would bring supplies, medicine, expertise, and hope. They would also bring warships. Because the galaxy had learned the truth about humanity. They were the kindest species you could ever meet. They would give everything to help a stranger. They would risk their lives to save someone they'd never met. They would show compassion and mercy even to enemies. But if you attacked their healers, if you murdered their innocence, if you mistook their kindness for weakness, you would learn why humans had once covered their own planet in weapons and fire. You would learn that human compassion and human fury came from the same place. A fierce love of life and an absolute unwillingness to watch the innocent suffer. The strong protect the weak. That was humanity's oldest rule. They protected others, and they protected their own. And in the cold darkness of space, there was no safer friend to have by your side.